where I was setting things up, and I look into the chat, and I see that there's quite a few people there. So let me start out by warmly greeting Tamu and Gina, and Madfinger and Oswald, and Enjoy Being, and Sunshine on Sophia. And I think, well, that's who I see right now. So warm greetings. And then those who will be watching later, that might not live, warm greetings to you as well. And I am Radigas, and hello, Mary Evans. So I do want to do a little, let's see, with all the movement of things from metahistory to Nemitta, and of course Nemitta being a newer site than metahistory is, I'm trying to figure out where am I going to get the information I do want to get to, which is Kamala, the Dakini on shift. But just give me a moment here. Oh, there we go. Okay, I found it. Although as usual, there's usually a couple of depths to go into. Let's see. Yeah, okay, this looks good. This looks promising. No, this one actually seems to have stopped there. I remember I used to be able to click on any of the Mahavidyas and get a nice little read on them, and for some reason I'm not seeing anything here for Kamala. And I know it's on one of the other things. So, oh well, I guess I will not be getting into that quite the way I wanted to. Anyway, I'll get back into the chat here. Anyway, hello Foxadre. Colin, hello. Deborah Gale. Meandering Mystic. So the title that I gave to tonight's Telestic transmission, I actually had to get up and write. For some reason, when it came to me, it was almost like kind of coming as maybe the possibility of a song to write. And I said, oh, I'll remember that. And a part of me said, get up and write it. And I didn't even turn the light on because it was it was already into the morning. I had enough kind of ambient light in the room. And I wrote down, returning to the sacred. And even with the word return, kind of, get that whole thing of like to return. And it had come after this was happened as I'd already laid down. So as soon as I laid down, I began kind of my as close as possible communications with any number of beings, starting, usually starting with our Divine Mother, with the Goddess herself. But there is so much, there's so many forms with our Mahavidyas and Dakinis and some other aspects. And I had spent some time before I turned out my light to gaze, working with the Shakti Cluster app, and I had turned off my computer. Something I almost never do was I completely just turn it off. And then I realized I would have liked to have located Kamala on the Shakti Cluster app. But now, John recommends it having, like, I guess what used to be kind of, like a regular, I guess, card size, about that big. So it's about the size of, like an iPhone or something. But for some reason, I was moved to get a bigger version of it. And so I'll get into my camera so I can really see what I'm doing in live time. So I got something done this big. Okay, this is I'm going to get a smaller one at one point, but this is the one I had printed up for myself. As you can see, it's like the size of my head. And I have really enjoyed it, and I always kind of keep it upright, and I rest it against a handmade drum, kind of like a shaman's drum, which I keep rested against my wall, and then I rest this in the middle of that. And so last night, I occasionally work with it, and I try to log into 16, where I greet the rest of the Rome. And, but it's always, whenever I interact with it, it's always an experience. But last night was really rich. Again, the more you work with it, the more you get communicated, you get instruction on how to work with it. And sometimes part of it is your own creativity, that there are a lot of different ways, there are myriad ways of interacting with this, and some of them are for us, I think, to discover. But my very first lunar shift to observe, to really get involved in, not just look at the crescent moon, but to get in touch with the Dakini. And I did have my very first moon experience. I really felt touched, and that was the Tara and Bhudevi. And then, of course, that turned out to be a double shift. Where there 2 lunar cycles in a row they were on. And I found the first shift, maybe it's because it was my first shift, was a very intense experience. And so, so since then we've been through some others. We've been through Bagalamukhi or Indras, and Baivari, and I'm forgetting the name for the one in the crab. Maybe I can grab it right here. Oh yeah, Vajrayogini, and then Sodashi in the last one. So I've really had Sodashi, very sweet, and then Variegated Mother in the last one, or Bodhi Ma. And so after all the, after kind of my exposure in different ones, I felt the most involved with Tara and Bhudevi. I felt I got the most kind of instruction, interaction, and they kind of both really, the energy between Tara, green Tara, and wrathful green Tara, but for me, the green aspect of her was very, very dear to me. And then Bhudevi and her kind of artistic and aesthetic thing, and how I remember one of the signs of experiencing that very first crescent moon was the desire to come inside and start making music, like pick up a guitar. It was like the instruction. And in the past couple of weeks, I've been really getting my musical act together, and it's just been a really rich experience. Matter of fact, I was playing my bass to a song I put a track down to last night, and for some reason I had some kind of crackle. I don't know whether it's in my equipment, whether it's in my computer, but I mean, it was jumping. It was it wasn't the playing, it was just the recording. That's one of the reasons I restarted my computer. I'm going to make another test. But I've just been so into it. So I just really been feeling very connected to Tara and Bhudevi. Hello, soul traveler. And so we had a pretty good rehearsal on Friday. The keyboard player we were trying out, good guy. We really liked him, but he just wasn't gonna be able to play at the level we play at. And if he was capable of it, I guess he wasn't into putting in the work. That if just like cause some of us old timers, we could once really play, and then if you want to kind of do what you once did, you got to reapply yourself. It really wasn't so much youth that enabled me to play the way I did when I was younger. It was how many hours a day I used to practice when I was younger. And then once all that practice gets you some kind of hardwired skills, but you really you'll always have your class after all that hard work, but your chops, not so much. And to me, really good chops are the chops that maybe only another bass player might notice, certain subtleties. I'm not talking about the wow stuff. I'm talking about how to be in the pocket, be tasty, the good stuff. And a big interacting with Tara, especially, and her connection with the green nature. I mean, so strong. There was a real kind of instruction on sacred. And the concept of sacred. And then interesting, even the difference in tone between sacred and holy. Where sacred doesn't come with a kind of a concept of righteousness. It become, it's the way, it's how it is. What is sacred is sacred. And of course there's a certain case for us to create sacred, but it's because we have a sense of what sacred is. And there was some very interesting thoughts that kind of went with being in the Shakti cluster last night. And honor and integrity were qualities that were being very emphasized, and as if like part and package of what is sacred. Because the better world for us to have on this earth is one where we are able to govern ourselves, and we do this through sacred through sacred agreements. I did not roll myself a cigarette for the show yet, and so I hope I'm going to be able to do this. The amount I'm spending a lot. There's been a lot of time spent doing nonverbal things, and coming on camera and then, you know, really being verbal has been a little tricky for me tonight, and my sleep patterns have been strange, and I do have a challenge in a little bit of a distracting challenge in my home space. I have a heater in my room because I keep my room as my safe place, but it appears, since it's been a weekend, I can't find out, but either my oil burner needs servicing or I am out of oil. And if it's the oil burner that needs servicing, I think that is just part of me renting here, and that would be covered. But I have to pay for my own oil, and if I need to buy 100 gallons of oil, wow. So right now, the rest of my house is, I mean, I don't have any thermometers in here, but it's probably around 55 degrees, maybe. You know, it's really cool out there. In here, I'm comfortable. I mean, I'm going to see quite a bit on my electric bill because of it, but at least I have it. And so I got all that kind of stuff in the background. Basically, you know, it's to put oil in a tank when I'm just grabbing my rent. I gotta, you know, but I have to make sure to kind of keep my my energy up. Oh, and by the way, in the description below, I put a little thing for the email I use for my PayPal, just in case. I mean, I figured can't hurt to have it there, and it's there kind of quietly, but it's at the top. Anyway, so that's got me a little distracted. Yeah, that's a thank you, Meandering. That's a really let me ring the bell then. That's for Sunshine on Sophia, because I forget, I don't remember exactly where it was. I think it might have been on a show I did on Saturday with Karen Newman, but I was just getting into, you know, this being sensual, how a big part of really enjoying being in a body is the sensuality, but I was emphasizing the sensuality as, you know, enjoying a breeze on your face, the scent of a rose, the taste of a certain food or fruit, you know, that, you know, the feeling of sunshine on you, you know, that kind of, just that beautiful sensual living. That we and you kind of you need to be out of your head to appreciate that, and it would be a lot easier to be out of our heads if there wasn't a world out there making you to constantly need to kind of like stay on your toes, rather than, you know, just worry, you know, if there's a predator in the bushes. I'm going to ring the bell again for enjoy being. I mean, all these things have been, especially last night, meditating with Tara, you know, or whatever, communicating. The aliveness of nature, and it was something is very interesting. There's a person who is a mycologist. So that has everything to do with, you know, all fungal forms, and including the fungal forms of this plant medicines. So his name is Paul Stamets, a mycologist. And to me, his most fascinating work is studying the mycorrhiza that are kind of like in the ground. It's what makes for healthy soil, how they communicate. And I don't really want, I mean, he does such a good job of it. And it wasn't necessary. It was new in that it was in the form of language, and it was in the form of confirmation from somebody else who had looked there. But what he was explaining about this networking of the mycorrhiza was just, you see the planet, you know, this massive intelligence that connects all through the ground, and you really get a chance to see Gaia in exquisite brilliance. I mean, he really gets into it, and recently, and I had to just, you know, because of the reverence I hold for this, and I heard somebody discussing that, observing the behavior and how intelligent it is, that this is some alien being that wants to take over the earth. That was their interpretation of observing this behavior of this organism. And rather than just realizing how brilliant our planet is, how the planetary animal mother is, you know, just brilliant. I mean, and the mycelium, the way it is constantly foraging forward and looking for new information, and how once any part of this massive thing decodes something or rediscovers, it just gets shared and across the board. And in certain ways, I think, when we're able to observe something like this, that it's observable in 3D, so to speak. Hello, Connie. We can see some of the behavior. If we take this into a slightly less physical construct, we could also see something in how morphogenetic fields work for each species. Where rather than a kind of, let us call like species-specific Akashic record for each group, what you see in the mycelium is the same thing happening in real time. So I'm assuming my vocals are okay. I had to change, because I did a recording using this mic last night. I had to change all kinds of settings. I'm even in a different channel. But since usually if there's a problem with the mic, I hear about it. Unfortunately, I did remember to switch back over to mono instead of stereo, which is a mistake I made once. So I don't know whether YouTube is giving the norm. Let's see. Well, got 6 watching tonight. That's definitely less than usual, which is just interesting. Hello, La Gata Blanca. So the word returning to the, you know, oh, it says 25 for you, Oswald? Oh, okay, thank you, Foxa J. All right. It does say 6 here, but that's just not a big deal. Thank you for getting back to me with the number. It even says I have decent stream health. Anyway, sacred. I paused for a moment because I was taking in tobacco, which is a sacred plant. And the only way that because I had quit smoking when I was 18, so I was without cigarettes for like, I don't know, 42 years or something. I've only been smoking a few years, maybe 4, maybe 5, after 42 years. And the only reason, it was a good move neurologically for me. At some point, I think I might phase it out again. But if I couldn't have found organic, no chemicals, because I know that tobacco, look, the tar is not good for your lungs, but tobacco doesn't really have any disease, cancer. Tobacco, I know that tobacco doesn't cause cancer. It's the additives that they put in tobaccos that do all that nasty work. But it is one of the sacred herbs. And it's good to presence that. There's just there are so many opportunities for us to make life more sacred. And once again, sacred is just, to me, an appreciation in many ways, and really seeing the wink of the goddess behind creation and all the other ones that partake in it. Because, this whole, there's a lot of players. To me, the Dakinis and the Mahavidyas are just, one way of getting an idea that there's other players in this with the goddess herself. Apparently, tobacco makes you slightly more resistant to programming. Makes you a little more thoughtful, a little more meditative, which is interesting for something that actually can limit oxygen to your brain, but apparently other neurochemicals are doing other things. And supposedly one of the big pushes to make tobacco socially unacceptable. Kind of like, do the political correctness thing on tobacco. And when it comes to what they put in tobacco, what they put in tobacco, all those horrible chemicals, it is really good that they ban that secondhand smoke. That is some pretty toxic stuff. Nobody should be exposed to that stuff. Because it's toxic. Now, the smoke off of mine might be unpleasant, and I could see somebody going, no, I'm not, and that would be totally acceptable, and I understand that, but it's not toxic. Well, good to hear, Oswald. Yeah, and it's delicious tobacco, too. I put my nose into a bag of this, and I smell it, and I've had 2 other ones, like, somebody gave me a big can. They gave me two big cans. One was the light blue, which a lot of people smoke, so I bartered that for a ride. But I still have this one left. And they don't smell anything alike. The organic tobacco you put, it's like, oh, it smells so nice. This, I don't know what, Actually, I just dumped out the last of this pouch. Bought one yesterday, so I'm in good shape. But even if on a desk here, well, it's kind of like towards the end and dry, so it doesn't it's not really that rich bouquet that because I often go for a nice sniff. It's really good smelling. Oh, Mary, I like that. That's what I have to. I mean, I have to. Fortunately, I've downloaded most of the Shakti cluster videos, so I want to. But I want to get. I really want to tune into Kamala. But my connection to Tara and Bhudevi, especially Tara, is when I'm. Is really. I mean, they really kind of capture two passions of mine. One of which is kind of community and but community within nature proper. Where, you know, I mean, kind of like a community that is composed of people in such a way to maximize nature, the majesty, the magic. And then the other thing is, you know, music, but also the use of materials, like even, you know, like I'm wearing a cotton shirt. This shawl here is made of bamboo. Bamboo actually makes a fairly good fabric. And then I have another cotton one here. You know, just like aesthetics of fabrics. Sacred geometry, you know, the use of angles in rooms. The need for us to do something about the constant right angles that surround us. Yeah, this is bamboo. And it really, yeah, it's, you know, it's really surprisingly warm. I mean, I can see the screen through it, but it's actually surprisingly warm. And it's a nice big shawl, like, so it goes down my back. It's really nice. I got it when I was working at Omega. A friend of mine had gotten one, and I said, well, what fabric's that? I said, bamboo. So I went in there, and fortunately they had a gray color. They had all kinds of colors that might not have been my best, but and it was reasonably priced. And at the time, I was working full time, so so if I saw something I liked, I could get it. Now here I am concerned about a gas bill, but it's temporary. Get it figured out. So one of the reasons I've been doing working with my guitars and recording, and I still, unfortunately, my Reaper DAW is still frozen. I uninstalled it, reinstalled it, but apparently there's still a file that is remaining in the uninstall that is telling it to use the settings that are freezing it. So, but I do have a laptop, so I might be able to put together something. I do have some music ideas I want to try. I might, you know, I'm thinking about just maybe taking a week or two break from Telestic transmissions, unless something really hot comes on, and not by any means disappearing, but also just to be able to concentrate a little bit just on some musical stuff. And, you know, because I think it would be unfair for me to be going into a very musical direction, and seemingly with the help of the Dakinis, especially Bhudevi, and not giving that expression. In many ways, it's kind of, you know, for me, sacred expression, but it's not necessarily Telestic. And so I'm not sure. So I decided I would put that out tonight, that I might take a week or two off from Telestic transmissions, But if I was doing that, it would be because I'd be putting out like Mystic Muses, which is always music based. And hopefully a Modwiz Presents song again. And so I would see it as Sunshine on Sophia saying, is creativity is magic. And actually, that's one of the things I did write. And as a title, and it's Understanding the Music Magic Connection. That was almost the title of tonight's stream. It was an alternate title. Understanding the Music Magic Connection. And that's kind of what I'm feeling so filled with, is a lot of creativity, where with a lot of musical vehicles that I feel are getting real coherence in their, in their way. And I'm working with songs that are, like a chord based, not riff based, not complex, where the melodies are, and the rhythms of the melodies, and in the rhythms of the instruments, even with simple chord structure, is where where I get creative, rather than trying to figure out difficult things, because there is so much melody in the simplest of chords. And then, chords that, might have been used over and over again, used in certain rhythmic patterns. Or just as the support for a good melody, where the melody takes over, where the melody is what matters and not the chords that the melody came out of. Hello, salty pleb. Or, yeah. So I'm looking forward to, actually, showcasing a way of making music that I think is a little old school, but I think a little more thoughtful, and kind of in a sense of evolution of one's music. But where rhythm and melody, and the texture of the overall song, how the parts play with each other. Like, how my bass would be playing with the guitar playing. I'm using electronic drums right now, so just, and even making use of that, like where that, I know what that's going to provide. So that is its own musical stream. So then building around, other things, the other instruments, using that and building off of that as a foundation. And then, of course, words that capture, I would, really like to try not to be too trite with the words. I'd like to be Telestic about them, but the whole thing is to to reach the most people. So so probably just using broader metaphors, but trying to take it, to mama, so to speak. And I kind of always look for rhythms that are body friendly. I'm not into exploring odd timings. There are plenty of people who, that's what they do. That's naturally what they do. And, and there's, a lot of people like that. It kind of fits into the prog rock. I'm just trying to make music. No genre. There are so many expressions of genre. I write in different styles, including 2 songs in kind of a country rock style. But a song that I had written in a folk style now has kind of that nice little jazzy lilt to it, and I'm really, I actually was doing an after stream with Meandering Mystic, and I showed him the old way and the new way, and everybody saw that. I didn't even change the tempo. I did not change the tempo. It was just how I took rhythm into that tempo. You know, the use of eighth notes instead of quarter notes and things like that. And how, you know, using a double note where usually only one note falls kind of gives a lift to it, even though it's the same rhythm. So that's one of the, you know, I really look forward to getting some of the ideas out. You know, sing to you guys. Because there's a little, you know, kind of like a little bit of a, you know, being a bard in a modern sense. You know, I'm a modern wizard, I'll be a modern bard as well. And I'm looking forward to doing something. I mean, it's almost like karaoke in a way, but where I kind of do my own background tracks. And then make a recording where I'm playing one instrument and singing live. So, you know, the vocal performance and whatever instrument I might be playing would be live to a pre-recorded accompaniment that I made. And so I thought that might be just a fun way to perform a song that sounds more like a song, because I have a drum track, it'll have, you know, if I'm playing guitar, I'll have a pre-recorded bass track. If I'm playing bass, I'll have a pre-recorded guitar track. And to see what that's like. Can it be done? Does it, you know, will it sound? Do I have the equipment to make that sound proper? I'll find out. I have shot put or something like that as an editing software. I heard there's another editing software called DaVinci. I don't know if it'll be, they all kind of have similar interfaces, but some are easier to use than other. And I find shot put tends to take files that are like only 200 megabytes, and then when I'm done processing, sometimes even editing them, taking things out, I end up with an 800 megabyte file, and I don't know why. If it comes to me, Mary, you know, if something like that were to come, I'd love to share it. I mean, for probably, you know, I mean, I'd probably want to, you know, if something ever comes to me, it would have to be in some kind of, obviously, once I found the melody, it would have a chord structure. But I'd like to play it on, I'd probably like to be able to sing it to just, you know, my hand drum. I think that chants and hand drums are a good way to go. I showed it, Meandering Mystic, I showed the new, because I used to play the old version with Butch. So I showed Butch the new version, and he really liked it. And actually, I played it at 8:30, you know, so a half an hour before showtime. I decided I would, even though the recording I made last night has all kinds of glitches owing to technical stuff. I played it twice and played my bass to it, because I have a drum and guitar recorded. And I played it once and I go, gee, I feel in a better mood. I go, well, so and then a voice inside me said, well, then play it again. And I did, and it put me even in a better mood. And, you know, I wasn't in a bad mood. I was just feeling a little frustrated, because it's just like, oh, man, I feel really quiet. Here comes a show, and I just really feel like playing guitar. And more so right now, it's more so my bass. I've been working on my bass technique, really kind of cleaning up my playing, look at any possible techniques that came naturally that maybe couldn't be cleaned up. I mean, then when we had, so I've been working on it for the past 2 weeks when we didn't have rehearsal. So when we had rehearsal this past Friday, I could see the time paid up in like cleaning up some technique, and even just developing a certain surety in execution really made a difference. It was a lot of fun to play this past Friday. yeah, it's kind of interesting where it seems like so much, instead of, you know, my normal verbal skills, you know, the ability just to kind of talk. Hello, Persian scribe. Is just not quite there for me, and I don't want to have, you know, I don't want to have boring shows. So that's why, kind of why I'm talking about music a little bit, because the music is, I'm like, that is what's, other than wanting to be able to pay for oil on my gas tank, music has been, and that's been my proper distraction. I mean, there's certain things just have to kind of resolve themselves and get figured out, and then there's the things I can do something about, like keep on playing. And be glad I have a bedroom that I can shut the door to and turn on my little DeLonghi heater, which is quiet. It's one of those oil-filled heaters, and be comfortable in my room. You know, I count. You know, I have the blessing of a safe space, but it's also my sacred space. I look around this room and what's on the walls everywhere, and it's just very, very special. But let me share one of the perceptions I had with this. Let me make sure I'm showing it right. Okay, I am. There we go. The Shakti cluster. Because of its size, and because I have it right off to the side of my bed, and then last night looking, and the word, even before I had my session with the Shakti Cluster app, the word portal had been directed towards me at least 2, possibly 3 times. And so I had a real sense, especially because, you know, like I said, it's a good size, and it's looking at me that as if like having the Shakti cluster there on my side of my bed is like kind of having a Shakti cluster portal. And that felt very joyful. So I'm having kind of fun working with it a little bit also as, you know, almost like, you know, it's a portal that just is there on my bed looking at me, and I'm looking at it. And that's the other thing is, because of its size, even if I'm on my pillow, I can like use my eyes and look at the Shakti Cluster app. And I go to you know, after I go into 16 and I go to VV 18 a lot. So actually, I spoke to Butch last week before rehearsal, and I showed him 3 different songs, and he got pretty excited about it. And we're working on getting a booking agent. That's kind of like an assignment he gave himself for mental health, and I am very pleased because some bookings for Uncle Butchie would make me say, "Oh, need to get oil? Okay, we get oil. Who do I call?" Because that's how I'm used to doing things. I'm used to being a responsible adult with many skills that knows how to keep a revenue flow going. I'm currently in a little bit of an experimental phase of my life. Well, that's what I was using it for in many ways. Soul travel. Last night when I was really feeling just lots of good energy, and I could, you know, after I put it down and put it there, and I already had this perception of it as a portal, I looked over it at 16, the login for the Rome, and I just said, I got to share this good feeling with everybody, and just kind of put it in there. So that, yeah, it was in that case, I was using a portal for the love I was feeling, for the, the joy. Yeah, we've been trying out a keyboard player, and we had to let him know it wasn't working out. And he was very gracious, but so were we. So we've been missing, because, since we've been breaking in a keyboard player, we haven't been able to just wail. And that's why this week we knew we were going to be parting ways. So a couple of times we just said to him, sit it out, we'll just play. And we played like we love playing together, because we do. So, missing some friends tonight, but it must be because they're busy or taking care of other things, like Ella, the elephant in the room, and Groovy Bean. So I might wind things down. Unless somebody else brings up a topic, because this is all going to go to music, and part of it's like, it is part of my body's like, I don't want to talk about music. I want to pick up my guitar. And I am enjoying the kind of being driven, because that is, to me, when I make proper connection with the Dakini, and just say, give me what you have. That within the domain of that particular Dakini, it will strike me a different way. And but the whole music thing is feels so good. Oh yeah, Persian scribe. That is bringing, significant others. We'll just put it that way. I mean, I've been a musician all my life. Sometimes more active than others, but I know what invariably where problems arise from, and significant others can play a big part of the problem. And if I'm using a gender neutral term, because it needs to be understood in a gender neutral way. Ah, there he is. Greetings, elephant. I still like elephant. Yeah, quiet is okay. Because joy is, sometimes it seems like joy, at least for me, happens more often in the quieter moments. And I'll just say it here, I play in the 432 tuning. I'm not going to make a deal of it. Because to me, since music is sacred, using a tuning that is obviously aligned with sacred geometry is the only way to go. So for me, if it's the only way to go, then it's what I do, and that's it. It's not about virtue signaling. That can often happen, and even create divisions about, you know, like, let's say, you know, there's this thing, you know, like 432 is the New Age tuning or something, and 440 is the Nazi tuning, okay? I mean, the Nazis had some involvement in it, but 440 is the modern tuning. It's part of the modern world's tuning. You could say kind of like a one world order type of tuning. But anyway, but 430, so anyway, all my music will be played in 432. There just will be no virtue signaling about it. I think doing the right thing is what you're supposed to do. It's part of what's, basically to me, it's being sacred. And if sacred is your way, then you don't you don't put a spotlight on it. The ambient light will be sufficient. But I believe when music is working within the frequencies of sacred geometry, its healing effect is complete. Last week, I think Thomas Sheridan spoke about the 432, 440 thing, and I thought he handled it in a rather clumsy fashion. Thomas can be clumsy sometimes, and it's part of loving him. And I do love Thomas Sheridan. I'm subscribed to both the Thomas Sheridan YouTube and the Open Source Occult, and I've watched 3 Thomas, you know, one or the other of the channel earlier today already. He's been putting out more. But he a couple of days ago put out one 432 versus 440, and I considered, and that's even to me versus. I mean, it's not a versus. There's this tuning, there's that tuning. This tuning is based on sacred geometry. This one is based on who knows. But it's not based on sacred geometry. It's removed from sacred geometry. So it's an option, or is it an option? And so that's the good point, Persian Scribe. What I guess what Thomas is getting is, again, why to me we must stay away from virtue signaling. I believe that 432 is, or some version. I mean, again, there are other ways of tuning, but this is where all the strings match up. It is the sacred geometry tuning. But I do agree totally with what Thomas said about. So does that make all the great music we grew up listening to in 440 shit now? No, not at all. It doesn't change a thing. It doesn't change a thing. We're going forward. So playing 432 going forward does not. See, that's the whole thing where you get into polarity and the way people, it's one or the other. But, you know, that's showing that people still have some kind of mind virus when you're still doing that kind of thinking. Like I said, I think 432 is the proper tuning, so I play in it. That's what I do, and I find others who agree with me, and we play in it. And that's it. You know, we don't. When we play out, we don't go, oh, by the way, we play in 432. No, we just play. And so all of the great music and all the music that, you know, maybe even gave us otherworldly experiences in 440, that's because music is that magical. And that's, for me, one of the reasons why I enjoy, I used the phrasing earlier, that by playing in 432, it kind of completes the magic. Music is magical regardless of the tuning. To me, to play it within a sacred geometry thing is to complete it, to just finish the job. you know, the interesting thing is when one looks like the number 432 and how it shows up all over in other sacred geometry things, you can see it's part of the organic matrix. And I like to be really clear. To me, what is wholesome and organic is the matrix, and what is digital, alien, and a mess is the Patrix. The movie that they made should have been called The Patrix. But because of what Hollywood is, they will never miss an opportunity to misrepresent and mock our mother in some way or other. And the Matrix is a mockery of our mother, describing their Patrix world, but calling it the Matrix. Hello, androgynes. I'll settle for your second part of your username. Yeah, I enjoy being, you know, subtleties, I guess. But yeah. Hello, Darcy. Yeah, but Persian Scribe, I do agree that too much is made of the tunings. Personally, I like the videos that explain what why 432 is a number of sacred geometry. And why one might go, oh yeah, first of all, it's a tiny, but it's a very small difference. But those are the ones I like, are just kind of presenting, the alignments with sacred geometry and celestial objects, diameters and distances and speeds of light and how all these numbers all have a sacred connection together. But when you start, when there's people getting into like 440, they're in 432, I think that's unnecessary. And so with what you said, the Persian Scribe, they make too much of it. I mean, again, the basic thing is, if you think it's good, play in it. To me, you're doing the world a favor playing in it. All the songs that, like especially if you're a copy band, you can play the songs that you loved in the new tuning, and nobody will notice. But there might actually be. I feel there's a healing effect that because it's producing sound waves that have a resonance with all of our cellular tissues. I just think it could be, again, to me, it would complete the magic. All the magical music made at 440, played at 432, nobody would notice, but it would be more magical. And the one thing I have not heard addressed in, to me, what is a good marriage of metaphysics and biophysics is, they've noticed that with the modern tuning of 440, that opera singers do not have careers that are as long. When one looks at what the difference in tuning is, it really is small. For anybody who might not know what a half step is or whatever, on a piano, any two notes that are next to each other, so it could be a black and a white one, if they're next to each other, any two notes are next to each other, the distance or pitch difference that they call that is a half step. The difference between 440 and 432 is 1/3 of a half step. Although actually it's tiny bit under 1/3, because they also have this breakdown of cents. It's like cents to a dollar. So there's 100 cents to one, and one is a semitone, or that half tone. So 1/3 would be 33.3 cents. But the difference between A440 and A432 is 32 cents. So it's even slightly less than 1/3 of a half step. It's really a very small amount. I think the reason why opera singers are having shorter careers with this slight increment, I think has little to do with that it puts more strain on them to produce the note. I think what's happening is vocal cords are constructed, like all our body parts, with sacred geometry, within Fibonacci spirals, all sacred geometry. So the vocal cords are optimized, especially when you're using them in that forceful way that opera singers do, to produce tones that are a harmonic of the the sacred geometry of the biological makeup of things. So since the vocal cords will be within sacred geometrical proportions, taking something like 440, which is at a dissonance to sacred geometry, creates wear and tear, because the sound that is being produced by the vocal cords has a dissonant ripple in it. And that breaks down the vocal cord tissue. And I don't see it as such really this tiny increase in pitch that is hurting their voices, is that their natural vocal cords are now producing an unnatural tone. So, returning to the sacred, kind of coming a little full circle here. And it's, so, I return to the sacred in my own fashion, and we will all, but I hope a theme for everyone is considering the sacred. And if something isn't sacred, see if it can be fixed. So what's the count here? I still have a count of 6 people watching. What if I'm almost concerned if I refresh my screen, I might lose it. Thank you, Fox J. Okay, thank you, Callan and Persian Scribe. So, anyway, 26 thumbs. So, yeah, so I think I'm really would like to, and I will be working towards, but I'm not going to put out any schlock. Thank you, Androgenes. but I'm really looking that is really what I want to put out next, is just some kind of musical content, and and also including some of my more geeky stuff. I still haven't done my two Weber hemp cone speakers, and promoting hemp as a, a better speaker cone. It sings better, plus also, why don't we leave what trees we can standing instead of turning them into speakers? And really, the sound is richer from hemp. Hemp sings, paper reproduces. It's almost like hemp is tubes and paper is transistors. And that's one of the things, actually, there's like a big controversy, kind of like in guitar, especially with guitar players, about tube versus transistors, or solid state versus tube amps. And also, I see, I'm a bass player, and so I'd like to, then there's also the solid state, the kind of solid states that they have in bass amps these days. So I like to talk about tone. Because tone is where some of the magic is. And just like, I will be putting out music that is, kind of represents a place I'd like to take music. Even with sound reproduction, I have all kinds of concepts of tone and how we could make music more musical again. Imagine that. I mean, so much modern music to me is kind of like, it's almost like, if you go to Taco Bell, there's like, 20 different things on the menu, and they all come out of, and everything gets assembled basically out of 6 different tubes of some kind of gack that they squeeze onto whatever, and then you have 20 different menu items. And a lot of modern music sounds like, there's like 6 different tubes of sound, this drum beat, this riff, whatever. Oh, it's so time to decriminalize it. Fox and Drake, a lot of people, they want, legalize it. It's like, no, in 1937, there was the Marijuana Tax Act, also known as the Anslinger Act. Just repeal that piece of shit. It's criminal. It's a criminal piece of legislation. Just repeal it, and let's just go back to 1936 as far as the cannabis species goes. Just enough already. That was horrible. I mean, and I really would have liked to appeal to, people, especially like the Bible Belt people. It's like, you can't outlaw creation. If these are people, God created the world and gave us stewardship. Well, yeah, will give us access to it. Anybody standing between us and what was given to us by the Creator, looks a little like a demon to me. So let's repeal. Let's just, cancel demonic laws like the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. It criminalized nature. Okay? Doesn't get, to me, I don't know how it can get more criminal than to make a human turn into a criminal for using nature. Okay, that's what I got. That's what I got for tonight. So, thank you all for being here. And once again, I'm not saying I won't do a Telestic transmission next week, but I might be taking 2 weeks off, depending on how this delightful creative madness has its way with me. Yep. Okay, so good night, and thank you all again, and may the goddess bless you, and may you learn about the dreaming. I spend more time there.